Justice demands that people have what is rightfully theirs. In thinking about what this means, questions of property, including wealth and income, power, and opportunity often take center stage. These things almost always end up being distributed unequally, which raises the worry that people are being treated unjustly because of that inequality. In response to such worries, people often point out that there can be good reasons for the inequalities that emerge. Reasons having to do with differences in need, differences in effort, or differences in contribution. Some of the most important discussions in political philosophy concern whether these good reasons for inequality are incompatible with, or alternatively, are actually grounded in, the demands of justice. To start digging into these questions, consider the following slogans. To each according to need, to each according to effort, and to each according to contribution. These way oversimplified slogans are based on the idea that if you pay proper attention to what people have a right to what they need, or a right to compensation for how hard they work, or a right to recognition for how much they contribute, then you must recognize that differences among people give rise to differential rights to other things. For example, you might hold that people with certain disabilities have a right to receive assistance that other people do not have. On such a view, if assistance were to be distributed equally rather than targeted at those who need it, people would in fact be failing to get what's rightfully theirs, and this would be an injustice. The details of such arguments are fascinating, and they go directly to the heart of understanding how a concern for justice, for giving people what's rightfully theirs, should play out in thinking about social and political institutions. But the situation is even more complicated. Among the things that make a huge difference in determining what is rightfully whose are the practices, conventions, and agreements that are part of being members of a society together. Consider a simple, uncoerced, but substantial promise, made sincerely and recognized by both parties involved. Let's say, for example, that I promise to look after your pets while you're away on vacation. In this case, it seems clear that you have a right to that promise being fulfilled. This right depends on the promise having been made, because if I hadn't agreed to take care of your pets, you'd have no right to my looking after them. But now it is a right of yours nonetheless, and gives me responsibilities that I otherwise would not have had. If I were to break that promise because I decide that taking care of your pets was inconvenient for me, or thought that it would distract me from doing something that would make a greater contribution to overall happiness, and then you came home from vacation to find your pets hungry and neglected, I would have done a serious injustice to you. In the same way that voluntary promises between individuals can dramatically shape the demands of justice, so too do all the practices, conventions, history, and agreements that permeate social interaction. These factors shape people's reasonable expectations and create contexts in which people who otherwise would have no claim now have very serious claims of justice concerning how others can and should act with respect to them. In some cases, these claims become enforceable by law. In other cases, they may not be legally enforceable, even as they might be serious matters of justice. These features of social interaction serve, in matters large and small, to create differences among people, differences in what they can claim as rightfully theirs. As a result, the complexity of human affairs utterly upsets any picture of justice being a matter of simple equality across the board, even if equality of something, say equality of respect, is still at the very foundation of justice. Working through the moral significance of our social interactions, of history, and of conventions is at the heart of developing a sophisticated understanding of justice. It involves appreciating that social interactions, history, and conventions are often rife with injustices, with exploitation, with coercion, and with abuse. Yet those past injustices still form the current circumstances in which we live, and from which, in our current positions, we regularly create new rights to things that deeply inform the demands of justice. This means that there are often competing claims of justice, where pursuing justice for one person risks inflicting new injustices on another. It's this difficulty, this complexity, that makes it so important to think deeply about questions of justice, and so important not to expect easy answers.